to look at this budget unformatted workbook that you've been sent, and you may have missed the session or just want to recap, so I thought I would record this and go over what we did in the class. So typically when you open up the workbook, I'd like to show you a couple of tricks. So we can't see all of the names of these bills in this fictitious outgoings. And so what I want to do is I want to double click on the column divider between the A and the B here, and that will just adjust the width of that column to fit the widest thing in the column. Now a nice little trick is that we can click in this button here between the A and the 1, and then now double click on the dividing line, and that will automatically adjust the width of every column to the width of the widest thing in those columns. And so you can see that when I click here, that's done quite a bit of the formatting for us, so that's given us a good start. The next thing I'd like to do is move this monthly total down a line, so I just like to remind people that there's a couple of ways you can do this. You can right click and choose to insert a new line. That's one way. If I undo that with Control Z or Command Z on a Mac, just so you know, if you select say 4 columns and do insert, then it will push down 4 from wherever the top of your selection was, so that can be a quick way of doing it. Another way that people often forget is that if you go to the edge of a cell, you can simply drag, the contents of that cell wherever you want it to go. So that's often the quickest way. Okay. Now let's add up January's bills to see how much money we're going to spend in January. So all formulas begin with equals. So I'm going to do an equals. The formula we want to use here is the sum formula. So I'm going to type SUM. And you see that what happens here is we get a predictive text showing us all of the different functions that Excel knows that begins SUM. So I want to use this top one that says sum. So I'm going to press tab as my autocomplete key. That opens it up. And then I'm just going to manually type in the cell references that I want it to add up. So I can see here that it's going to go from B3, okay? And then I'm going to do a colon, which means 2. So the 2 dots means 2. So I'm going to say from B3 to B15. Okay. Now for good measure, we could put a bracket on the end. However, if I leave the bracket out, it will still work. Excel will put that bracket in for us. If, however, you need more than one bracket to finish a formula, which you do with some more complicated formulas, then Excel will complain. So it's always probably best practice to put it in. Let's show you another way that you can add up the same column, or the next column across. So I can do equals sum, and this time instead of typing my formulas, I'm going to click on C3 here, and I'm going to drag all the way down. I included C3 because although it's blank in this one, if I want to copy this formula across, I want to include that cell. Okay, so I'm going to press enter here. Okay, and we could work our way across. But instead of that, I'm going to right click on this formula and I'm going to choose copy, and then I'm going to select all of these cells and I'm going to right click and I'm going to choose paste. And there we go. All of the formulas for the 12 months have now been entered for us. Okay. And if I double click on say this end formula, we'll see that the formula has actually changed from B3 to B15, and now it's M3 to M15. And so this is an important characteristic of Excel. If we move a formula by copying and pasting it, then Excel will try to help us, and it will always change the formula relative to how to where we initially wrote it. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to show everybody a quick trick here. So I'm going to just delete all of those formulas. I'm going to write this same formula again now, equals sum. I'm going to use my mouse to select the range. I'm going to press enter. And it turns out that right-click copy, select areas, right-click paste is so commonly used in Excel that they actually built in a shortcut to do the same thing. So what you can do down here is you hover over the bottom right-hand corner where you can see that little square, and you know you're on it because the square will change to a black cross. And then I can click and I can drag all the way across, and that does exactly the same thing. That does copy and paste all the way across. Okay, so there we now have all of the monthly totals again, and that's probably a much quicker way of doing it. I'm going to add another column here that says total again, and I'm going to write a formula going left to right. So this time I'm going to say sum, and I've dragged from M3 to B3 there, and then I press enter. Now here's a nice little trick that you can do. We've just learned about this copy and paste handle that we know we're on when we get the black cross. I can double click on that handle. This only works vertically, but when you double click on it, it will copy and paste the formula all the way down until it comes to a break in your data. And when it came to that break, it stopped. But that can be quite a nice little trick to use. So let's have a look at a couple of other formulas. So we need to know about the average formula. So here are the 12-month totals. Okay, I wonder what the average amount that this person is spending each month on their bills is. So let's have a look. So we're going to say equals average. There it is with my tab complete again. And I'm going to select B17 and I'm going to drag across to M17. And I'm going to press enter there. Now we could of course have done this manually. I could have said, I'm sure we all know how to average something out. What you do to average something is you sum it all up. So I'm going to sum that. So I get 8,256. And then if I adjust this formula by double clicking on the cell, I'm going to say take the sum and divide it by 12. Okay. So it's going to do this part first, and then it's going to do divide 12. And you should see we get exactly the same. But the beauty of using the average formula is that we don't have to count how many items there are. Excel counts it for us as it does it. So, you know, obviously it's easy when there's 12 things like this, but if you've got a list and there's 273 things in it, and it doesn't start at A or at 1, you know, we don't have to bother counting it. So the average formula. And the idea here is I'm just going to show you three more formulas altogether. So average is one of them. Then there's a formula here, min. Now the min formula, exactly as it sounds, M-I-N, open brackets. This gives you the lowest number in a selection. So if I want to know which my lowest bill amount is going to be, for the month, sorry, I can say min from B17 to M17, press enter, and I find 48856, which we can see here, and that should be the lowest amount of the month. Now, if there's a min formula, there should be a max formula too, and that does the opposite. That will find me the highest number. So I'm going to say equals max. I'm going to select all the way across here. I'm going to press enter, and that's given me my highest number. So let's find that one. There it is, 18852. Okay. Now then, let's have a little look at some formatting. It's always nice to format your documents to make them look more professional. And typically what people do is they maybe make the title stand out. You might want the column headings to stand out, the row headings to stand out, maybe the multi-total. So I'm going to go through and make a few little changes. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to center my monthly totals. And I want to center it right in the middle of this. So there's a nice option here that says merge and center. And the way that works is you select what you want to merge. And so you can see I've selected from column A to column M there. And this one then put the text in the left hand most, so that monthly outgoings, when I press this button, it will center that. So that's quite nice. And maybe I could bump up the size of the font, you know, maybe just bump it up a little bit just to show that it's the title. Then I'm going to select the column headers, and I'm going to choose a little background for them. Now the rule of advice here is only ever use light colors when you've got dark text, and use dark colors when you've got light text. So as I've got black text, I'm going to go for, say, a light blue. Okay, because I always find it looks a little bit darker when it goes on the screen anyway. And I'm going to select down here, and I might do the same again. Okay. Now I often find it makes it more readable to, and we'll include I should have included the total there as well. I often find it makes it more readable to turn on all of the borders. So I can come up here and I can choose the borders. So I'm going to say all borders. So I want every single line filled in. There we go. And then a nice trick is I want to make it so that the eye can follow all the way along each row. So I'm going to take a new color, let's say this light orange. I'm going to fill that in there. And now what I could do is I could now fill in every other row in this light orange, which was okay, you know, there's not too many here. But if I want to do it a bit quicker, I'll undo that, Control Z. In fact, I went too far then. I wanted to keep one, so I will redo, okay, which is Control Shift Z, or Command Shift Z on the Mac. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually copy this. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to choose copy, and then I'm going to select everything. Now I am on a Mac here, but if you're on a PC, when you choose to paste, I'm going to just paste the formatting here, and on a PC it's a picture of a clipboard with a little paintbrush on it. Okay, so I'm going to paste the formatting. So when you paste the formatting, it leaves the contents of the cell, whether it's text or formula, untouched, and it just takes the formatting that you've already assigned and copies the formatting only. Okay, so I'll do something again for the monthly total here. Maybe I will add a different sort of a line. I could do a thick box around it maybe, and it's only subtly thicker. And maybe I could fill that in there, and maybe give this a blue as well. Okay, so it doesn't really matter how you go about formatting, but it's nice that whenever you present your work, you should pay some thought to formatting it. Okay, what I might actually do, these things tend to override each other, so if I put these all borders on, that's going to remove my thick border. Okay, but I might then put a thick border around the outside, and that will actually keep my inner borders because I haven't replaced them, so that looks quite nice. And then what we ask you to do, so that we're sure that you know how this sum formula works, and just bear in mind here, the important thing is that you've got the word and the brackets, and then this is called a range, okay, inside the brackets, and look how similar all of these are. All that's happening is really the word is changing. So we sum up a certain range, or we average a certain range, or we say give me the minimum, the lowest number from a range, or we say give me the maximum number. So it's always equals, it's always the word you want, and then inside the brackets is going a range. Okay, and in order for you to practice this, on the next page we've got some slightly larger data set. Okay, and there's 10 questions here for you to answer. So if it says the total, then you probably use the sum formula. Average is average. The most would probably be max, and the least min. And so, for example, the total number of hours worked, I'll do this one just to start you off. So I'm going to say equals sum, number of hours worked. So I need to go right to the top of my spreadsheet. Here's hours work column. I'm going to select all the way down to the bottom, and I'll show you a trick in a minute to do this. I'm going to select all of that column, press enter, and that's the answer. Here's the trick I want to show you. I'm going to type equals sum open brackets. I'm going to again go to the top, but now, so on a PC, I'm going to press Control Shift down, and on a Mac I'm going to press Command Shift down, and that selects the entire column until it got to a break in the data, and then I can just simply press enter. I get the same answer. So it's worth having a play with using your arrow keys to move the cursor around. Okay. And then the shift key is like clicking and dragging when you click your mouse button and drag, and the control key will jump. So if I do control down now, it will jump down to 31 there. If I do control up, it will jump to the very top. Okay, and at the moment on this document, in order to make it easier, we've got freeze panes turned on. Okay, so let's just quickly talk about that. So if I go to the View ribbon, I could choose to unfreeze my pane, so I'm going to click on that. And now, as I scroll around, everything moves as normal. You could choose to freeze the top row. If you freeze the top row, as it suggests, just the number 1 row remains on the screen. So I'm going to unfreeze that. You could choose to freeze the left-hand column. In this case, it's the first name. So as I scroll to the right, the first name remains on the screen all the time. Again, may or may not be useful. But the most useful one is the freeze panes itself. And the way that works is wherever you click, so I just click randomly here on F9, when I choose freeze panes, it will freeze everything above. So the first 8 rows is frozen because I clicked on F9, and also everything to the left So columns A, B, C and D, because I clicked on F, so everything to the left and everything above gets frozen. Okay? So if I unfreeze that, so if we want to keep the top 2 rows on our screen as well as all of the headers, if I put my cursor here in M3, I choose to freeze panes. As I scroll down, they will always remain on the screen, and as I scroll to the right, actually probably would have been ever so slightly better if I'd have put it in N3, but it doesn't really make much difference here because we're not really scrolling left or right. Okay, so those are some tips and tricks, and so what we'd like you to do in order to complete the correct evidence for the course is to go ahead and do 2 things. So sort of mimic the budget to look like I have and apply your own formatting to it, and have a couple of goes with an average, a min and a max. And then on the practice tab, answer these 10 questions all by yourself. Well, 9 really, because I've done one for you, but that's going to work together to be your evidence. Okay, thank you ever so much.